Everybody, welcome to tonight's show. Today, we're going to talk about the profound impact that sleep has on your life, not only your physical health, but your well being, your mood, everything. If you're not getting good sleep, it becomes that much more difficult. We're also going to talk about some of the afflictions that people suffer with when it comes to lack of sleep and reasons they can't go to sleep. If you are somebody who suffers from insomnia, we're going to give you some practical tips and some tricks to perhaps, improve that for you, give you a better quality of life. And then we'll even get into the cool end of things, lucid dreaming, and some of the stories people have told and ways that you can actually implement that in your own life as well. So for everything you've ever wanted to know about the world of sleep, you've come to the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome to Quantum Matter Podcast. My name is Louis Borges. Joining me as always, my good friend and co-host, Mr. Marquise Williams.
What's up, everybody? What's up, Louis? Let's get this party started.
Isn't it ironic that we're doing a show on sleep when both of us could really use some right about now?
Yeah, I know. Like, it's funny because, now we've got even more activity going on in both of our lives. And it's like, well, you were like, hey, let's talk about sleep. And I was like, yeah, let's talk about it because I'd like more of it. So if I can get it just by talking about it, we'll start from there. So
when I told my wife we're doing an episode on sleep, she's like, sleep. Like, what's that like?
It's a keyword.
We have a toddler. Life is difficult.
Yeah.
So welcome everybody. Welcome chat room and everybody in the world of YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and the UNX network. Today's episode is sponsored by our good friends at H2 Water Expert. For all your water filtration and hydrogen therapy needs, check out h2waterexpert.com. This is actually one of their featured machines, Marquise. This is their H2 Vesta. We both have been enjoying ours. It's probably the coolest trinket or toy I think I've ever had. And awesome. For more information, check out h2waterexpert.com, and the link is in the description. So let's get into the world of sleep. It's a big topic. We could do a mini series on it because, there's everything from how to get proper sleep, the effects of it, the negative effects of not getting enough sleep, conditions people suffer with, different types of sleep, REM, non-REM, lucid dreaming, all the rest. We're going to try to condense as much info in a small episode as we can today. And we've got plenty of slides and video as usual to make it all super digestible and fun, right? So let's start off with a quick slide here. Generally speaking, to get healthy sleep, these are sort of the guidelines. So develop a ritual, go to bed at a certain time. We're creatures of habit. Our bodies like it. Sleep in an alliance in the dark, sleep in silence in the dark. So eye masks, if, you're sensitive to that sort of thing. We're going to get into circadian rhythms and what that all means. Don't eat too much before you go to bed. Don't smoke and do not use alcohol. Take a walk or mild exercise. Don't have any caffeine, of course. Sleep on a firm, level, and comfortable bed. So interesting that it's preferring firm over soft, but interesting there. And favorable temperature. Temperature actually matters. We got a video clip from Andrew Huberman on that. A couple of degrees difference actually makes a massive difference on your sleep. And go to bed and wake up at the same time. Don't put electronics near your head. There's electromagnetism. Again, screen time. Blue light filters are good, but screen time of any sort within the last few hours before bed is not a good idea. And don't watch TV or play games. And don't focus on your insomnia. A big part of this actually is, you're laying in bed and you're going, oh my God, I have to get up in 5 hours for work and I still haven't gone to sleep. That sort of ruminating on the insomnia can make it worse. So we'll give you some tips on how to avoid that as well. So I know, Marquise, you did sort of different angles that I covered on this. What sort of stands out to you as the main theme or most important thing you want to convey about this?
So I think by now everyone pretty much knows that I tend to focus a lot on like what's the data and the facts and like just basic like the stuff about that, because for me, I don't know why, but I can translate that to practical application. Whereas you do the exact opposite. You know how to take those complex ideas and just get right to the applicable, knowledge of this information. So kudos to you, but I'm not that good yet. So let's just talk about what I've learned. For me, it was more about the case studies, which I have quite a few here. We'll talk about some of those throughout this conversation as we talk about different topics. I learned a lot about how your brain responds chemically to lacking sleep versus getting good sleep. The one thing that I will say is we align, especially on getting sleep at the same time. So that kind of resonates throughout a lot of the research that I did on this. Is that the idea of your brain or your body literally being like a clock? It knows. You ever go to sleep at the same time every day and wonder why you wake up? That like some people can't get up at any other time. They get up right before their alarm clock goes off because their body is literally, it kind of takes that routine and it remembers it. And it's weird to me that your body and your brain is able to do that because you don't consciously keep track of time like that. It's kind of a passive thing that happens as your life goes on. It's always moving and you're like, whoa, look at the time. But your body always remembers. And you know this by, for example, those kinds of behaviors like waking up at the same time right before your alarm clock goes off. And then some more about the benefits of some of the things you mentioned, of course, sleeping on hard surfaces or firm surfaces. There's a reason for that. I got some information about that. The temperature is really important, which we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm going to wait for you to lead on those because you just did too well with that. And then I'll add and expand on some of that stuff. So there's a lot. We did a lot. We both did. We did a lot of research on this, and there's a lot to share. So
for sure. And you're absolutely right about the sort of habit or the pattern we get into. My dad for like nearly 30 years got up at 5:30 in the morning every single day to go to work. So when he retired for like the first year, he was still getting up in the morning roughly around the time because his body was just so used to it. Even though he wasn't working, he wasn't getting as physically strained, wasn't, going to bed as tired as he used to. He wasn't even going to bed the same time as he used to. But the wake up time, that circadian rhythm was there for a long time. So I'm one of those people where it doesn't matter if I go to bed at 9 or midnight, I can fall asleep. Usually I don't suffer with that. But if your body is tricky and gives you a hard time and you do have bouts where you can't go to sleep, definitely try to get into a rhythm or a pattern because that should help. It should significantly improve it anyway. And going to bed earlier than later actually makes a difference. I mean, initially, I would think 8 hours is 8 hours. Who cares if I go to bed at midnight and wake up at 8, or if you go to bed at 8 and wake up at 4, kind of thing, right? But apparently, going to bed earlier in the evening, just because of our circadian rhythm, our body clock, our relationship between sunlight, we're still animals, and we come with that programming. So I've got a video clip here on the benefits of going to bed early.
The earlier you go to bed, the more likely you are to fall into a deep sleep. The other hormone that's released is epithalamin. And epithalamin is a hormone that increases learning capacity. God designed our brain to be learning new things right up until the day we die. Many people's brains deteriorate because they stop learning new things. We should ever learn new things. So epithalamin increases learning capacity. So to be able to understand and retain the new things that you're learning, we need to go to bed early. You ask any teacher, they can tell the children that had a late night because they just don't get it. They don't retain. Epithalamin increases learning capacity, and epithalamin slows down aging. Everyone over the age of 25 likes that one. So these are the hormones that are released in these hours every night. But more comes into the equation. And I was reading a book called Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. And there's some fascinating research that he quotes in there. And this research was first started probably in about the 1950s. and they were doing research on rats, and they found that there were periods of the night where the eyes, the eyelids are closed, but the eyes are active and moving, and then there are periods of the night where the eyes were still. So they put electrodes on the brain and on the eyes, and what they found is when the eyes were active, the brain was active. But when the eyes were still, the brain was a little bit more still. Some of the researchers, even their 2-year-old children, they had all wired up while they sleep. And, you know, they had lots of volunteers come in. Sometimes they did it on themselves. And they found that across board, the same thing was happening. So what they did was they called the eye moving fast, rapid eye movement time, and the eyes moving slowly, non-rapid eye movement time.
Yeah, REM sleep, right?
Yeah.
The timing when your brain is, it's like you're the dreaming state. The dreamless state. The rapid eye movement, you need that in order to get that rejuvenation. We talked a little bit about that during the last episode, actually the last 2 episodes. I think we talked a little bit about the idea that when you're in that deep REM sleep, that's when your body actually gets to reduce your metabolic rates are lower, which allows your body to focus more on rejuvenation and cellular repair, which we're going to talk a little bit about too. It allows your brain to deal with the growth hormone releases, which you need, of course, to help recover and the muscle tissues from the day when you're whether it be heavy physical activity or so forth. And of course, your brain development, your brain function, your emotions are affected by not getting that REM sleep, not getting that rapid eye movement sleep. If you don't get that, and by the way, it's not consistent, you dip in and out of REM sleep all night long if you get a good night's rest. So that's really good. That's actually really, really awesome stuff.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can get 8 hours of sleep and you wake up and you feel exhausted, right? And there are actually conditions. It's not insomnia. I think I have a slide which I'll play later on it, but it's people that do get plenty of sleep but still don't feel rested, and it has to do with that hormone. They're not getting enough REM sleep versus the open eye sleep, and it causes physical conditions and can even cause psychiatric conditions. I mean, we did an episode on epigenetics, that being, you're born with certain genes you can't change. They may or may not preclude you to getting cancer in the future, but there's so many more things that happen throughout the course of your life that you have control over: stress, pollution, things like that, right? So the epigenetic effects of not getting sleep are also profound as well. So let's check out sort of the effects of just some of the effects of not getting enough sleep.
What is the effect of, say, if you have 3 nights a week where you sleep 8 hours, and then the next night 2 hours, and then the next night 8 hours? How much of a bump or how much of a dip does that 2 hours give you in your overall health?
It's bad.
It's bad.
So today, both you and I have produced cancer cells in our body. What prevents those cancer cells from becoming the disease that we call cancer is in part these natural killer cells. And after 1 night of 4 hours of sleep, that is a remarkable state of immune deficiency. And that's one of the reasons why insufficient sleep predicts cancer. Now, in the spring, when we lose an hour of sleep, we see a subsequent 24% increase in heart attacks.
What?
In the fall, in the autumn, when we gain an hour of sleep, there's a 21% decrease in heart attacks. So it's bidirectional. Wow. That's how fragile and vulnerable your body is to even just the smallest perturbation of sleep.
1 hour.
So I want to mention something. So when you don't get enough sleep, because there's some of that stuff I didn't actually know about, but when you don't get enough sleep, your body releases cortisol, stress hormone.
Yeah.
Do you know what the leading cause? So I'm just going to jump to it. The 6 leading causes of death are chronic stress related. They're linked to chronic stress. So heart disease, cancer, lung ailments, accidents, whether it be all kinds of liver disease. Of course, there's suicide. According to the American Psychology Association, these are the leading causes of death in America. So when you think about the idea of how a lot of Americans, we kind of developed this culture where, this go get them, like Gary Vee, and I'm no disrespect to Gary Vee, but like, what do they call hustle culture? where it's like you don't need 8 hours of sleep. You just gotta get your 3-4 hours of sleep. You work your butt off till you're 50 years old, and then you retire. Well, you're probably gonna retire with all kinds of ailments, and ultimately, a lot of people that are high stress, high function jobs like CEOs. There was a study about a decade ago or two. I think it was 2 decades ago, actually, in the 90s, where they talked about how CEOs were jumping off buildings and committing, acts of ending their life because of the stress from being such high performers and focusing heavily on their work versus getting enough, sleep and any way to rejuvenate themselves from that high stress and high energy work. You got to be able to get that rest. Sleep is super important because, again, as we just said, and as the guy just said on the Joe Rogan Experience, the leading and as we looked up here in the research before, the leading causes of death of the 6 of them are chronic stress related, which means they don't just go away. You don't get rid of them.
Yeah. Oxidative stress in the body, it happens just as a natural process, right? You consume calories, you breathe in oxygen, there's, you burn those calories, and then there's waste, there's byproducts, there's hydroxyls, free radicals that you need to figure out a way to get out of your body. And your body doesn't have the ability to heal itself while it's sleeping. A lot of DNA repair is actually done during sleep. And here's a couple examples here. It seems complicated, but they're looking at like tumor shrinking, drug treatments, drug resistance, things like that, radiation and chemotherapy. So like basically these are just some examples of things that happen to your DNA that can increase or reduce your risk or the effect on disease itself. And all of this is linked to sleep. So, I mean, it's not just like you're not going to feel great, or you're going to be a little fuzzy. Here's the difference between your DNA when you're awake and when you're asleep. So you have a neuronal DNA damage. Your body detects that and signals it, and then an accumulation of sleep pressure, quote unquote, builds. Then when you go to sleep, there are chromosome dynamics. There is a recruitment of DNA repair proteins. So in other words, your body starts saying, okay, we have this accumulation of sleep pressure we need to fix. It rallies the troops, and then DNA repair happens. And so your body needs physical sleep so that you don't age. You know how you look the next day with no sleep? You look older. You look haggard, right? You can physically see the effects of that in somebody that's well rested or not. You could even see it yourself. You get 2 hours of sleep, you look in the mirror, you're like, oh my God, like I look horrible, right? So it's real, it's visceral. And a lot of people suffer from disorders. Like here's the main 5. The first one being insomnia, which would be difficulty staying asleep or even falling asleep. Sleep apnea. A lot of people have the CPAP machines to help with sleep apnea. Basically you stop breathing for long periods of time. It's also attributed to snoring. A lot of snoring is not actually just snoring. It's sleep apnea. It's just undiagnosed. And then hypersomnia. That's what I mentioned earlier with people who get plenty of sleep. And I've experienced this myself, especially in times of, high stress in my life. Even when I'm getting the right amount of hours, I don't feel rested when I wake up. So, and you still feel tired. You still feel like you could sleep another 8 hours on top of that, right? And then narcolepsy, we've seen narcoleptic goats, they run and then just pass out on the spot. But that's a real thing. Human beings have that. And think about how debilitating that would be in your life, where you could just, you can't drive a car with narcolepsy. You would kill yourself and who knows how many other people, right? So your life becomes altered forever with a major sleep condition like that, right? And then parasomnia, which is an abnormal or unusual behavior. We're talking sleepwalking, sleep paralysis, people that do random stuff in their sleep, abnormal to what the most people would do, right? And as we mentioned too, there's also a few others. Restless leg syndrome, people that are always kind of jittery and moving, that's an actual thing. And circadian rhythm disorders, which is basically dealing with your body's ability to identify light and dark. I mean, plants have it. As soon as it starts getting more light out during the day, all your plants start to bloom. They identify that it's more light. So we have a circadian rhythm as well. And here's Andrew Huberman on light and melatonin levels. We've all heard of melatonin supplements that help you go to sleep. They're actually not good to use for long periods of time. So consult with your doctor or use it sparingly. Don't use that as the only way you go to sleep. If you need sleeping pills to go to sleep, find out why you're not falling asleep, because there's a lot of side effects with heavy pharmaceutical drugs. But it could just be the light. I know, like, we invested in blackout curtains last year because the sunshine in the summertime was so bright. We didn't want it waking up our toddler who we were putting to bed at like 6 o'clock when it's still screaming bright out in July, right? So we invested in curtains that had sort of a thermal layer and then a blackout component to it where no light could pass. It literally makes your room pitch black. And I find that my sleeps, I wake up feeling a little more rested than I did before we had those blinds. So there was also like mood lights and things like that too that can help your body produce, when you get sort of sad, seasonal adjustment, when it's like rainy out or gray, wintertime, less light. So having light therapy can actually help with that too. So we're very sensitive to light. We're basically sunflowers, just in a different body. But let's check out Andrew Huberman and see what he's got to say.
If you wake up in the middle of the night and you go into the bathroom and you flip on the lights, and those are very bright overhead fluorescent lights, your melatonin levels, which would ordinarily be quite high in the middle of the night because you've been eyes closed in the dark, presumably, will immediately plummet to near zero or zero. We would all do well, regardless of time of year, to not destroy our melatonin in the middle of the night in this way. So if you need to get up in the middle of the night and use the restroom, which is a perfectly normal behavior for many people, use the minimum amount of light required in order to safely move through the environment that you need to move through.
I've got thoughts. So this is interesting, okay? So, and I didn't know this. I'm not going to lie. I got to be honest with you. I did not know this. But the pineal gland, because I knew melatonin was a hormone that your body releases whenever you're about to go to sleep, especially whenever it's dark. Your brain produces melatonin. I did not know that it was the pineal gland that produces melatonin. And it regulates and maintains your body's circadian rhythm, which you mentioned a lot about the circadian rhythm. If you don't get enough sleep, it replenishes every 24 hours, but when it peaks at about, hold on one second. It peaks at about 2 and 4 a.m., which is usually when people get up to use the bathroom if they're going to bed around 10, 11 o'clock at nighttime. This is something that's really important for people to pay attention to. When you're going to go to sleep, before you go to sleep, you mentioned this when you talked about some of the things you can do to help go to sleep. Turn the lights off or dim them. Use some kind of a special light, which you can actually look at some of those lights on Amazon. They kind of look like, they're not blue lights, but they kind of have like a blue or purple tint to them. And that can help your brain naturally produce melatonin, which helps you, or the pineal gland, which helps you fall asleep and get into those REM states. So it is natural to take melatonin if you have to for a time, but you should cycle on and off melatonin. I think it's like a couple weeks at a time. If you're cycling melatonin, if you have those issues with sleeping, you cycle on and on or on and off. Take melatonin 2 hours before you go to sleep. Turn the lights down low so you can get that deep REM sleep, to get that rejuvenative sleep, deep sleep. That's what you can.
And I had read an article that I've just made some quick notes on it, but about the health impacts of poor sleep over and above what we've already discussed. And it basically said inadequate sleep is linked to weight gain as it disrupts hormones like leptin, ghrelin, and it affects your appetite regulation. Your cardiovascular health also suffers from poor 100%. Sleep. It leads to hypertension, increased heart attack rate variability, like the guy even said. When the time change happens, which we just had here in Canada this weekend, but that also increases people's probability of having a heart attack, because it's like they have to adjust, and now you're depriving the body of sleep. Same thing as flying, jet lag. It's probably the worst thing that could happen to you. Jet lag, inflammation rates go through the roof. We mentioned oxidative stress, that is directly linked to inflammation, and your immune function weakens. You're more likely to get sick. Yeah. People that travel a lot think they're just sick more because they're on planes, they're sharing germs, they're in different airports. That is true, but a lot of it is also you become immunocompromised when you do that as well. Even the pressurization has an effect as well, right? So your body stops producing cytokines or antibodies, and it just makes you more susceptible to infection, right? So like that's a lot to do. And the scariest thing for me is the psychological impact. Yeah, I got a clip here from the same gentleman we heard from earlier, I think, on the psychology, like of all the conditions people seem to have, very few of them don't have something to do with sleep. So let's check that out and we'll get your thoughts.
We have not been able to discover a single psychiatric condition in which sleep is normal. Wow. And I think sleep has a profound story to tell in our understanding, in our treatment, maybe even ultimately at some point our prevention of grave mental illness. And I don't say that flippantly. Firstly, we've done some work where you can take healthy individuals and you can deprive them of sleep for a single night. And then you place them inside an MRI scanner and you look at how their brain has changed. And what we find is that these deep emotional brain centers erupt when you're sleep deprived. You become a lot more emotionally reactive, impulsive. There's a deep brain center called the amygdala, which is one of the centerpiece regions of the generation of strong emotions. That part of the brain is up to 60% more reactive when you're sleep deprived relative to when you've had a good, solid night of sleep.
Do you remember you remember the guy that I follow? I can't remember now. I can't think of his name at the moment, but you don't like him because you see you don't know he's the guy that always talks about there is no free will.
Is that Robert Sapolsky?
Robert Sapolsky.
I think he's brilliant. Just to be clear, I think he's a genius. I just don't agree with his sentiments that none of us have free will, even if we think we do. A lot of people have free will. They used to be crappy humans, addicts, all kinds of bad things. Now they're like reformed people and they make an active choice not to be. So we do have free will.
Well,
but his point was that
yeah,
in the nature versus nurture, whatever that nurture was or lack thereof, it's already decided who you're going to be right then and there. Your fate was sealed. Whereas I tend to think we have choice.
The reason why he thinks that though is because when you think about the environmental influences on human biology or the biology of anything or whatever, right? If you think about it on the level of DNA, then literally everything in your environment, from the electromagnetic waves to the chemicals in the air that we talked about, the micro toxins that are all over the place, all of those things affect everything from your cognitive abilities to your health, to your well-being and so forth. Technically, we don't have control over that. We live in a world where these things are happening all around us, and we're constantly being bombarded by all kinds of things that affect our overall biology. So I'm not saying that I believe in no free will, but I understand where he's coming from. But let me just give you a couple case studies.
That's to imply that air pollution completely robs you of your free will. So we know air pollution makes it hard to focus, high CO2 levels, kids in school, cognition is, but they don't become zombies all of a sudden and just do MK Ultra type experiments.
Oh man, no, but they might rob
you of your free will because you have epigenetic influences in your life.
I don't know. Let's talk about case studies.
You're thinking a little, maybe make you a little more easy to control, a little more, easy to manipulate, but you're not getting mind controlled because there's, nitrogen oxide pollution and, particulate matter floating around and,
Hold on, man. Hold on. Calm down. All right, let me
think about it. How many kids turn out good that come from crappy parents? So it can't just be only that.
Well, some people have a level of resilience that other people don't. Everyone's biology is different, right? We may all be human and have certain consistencies among all of us biologically, but there are some variations, especially when it comes to behavior and attitude. So let's talk about case studies, and then I'll relate this back to what we're talking about right now with free will. So there's a case study called the Sleep and Emotional Regulation, an experimental study by Gujar N. McDonald. And a few other scientists as well in 2011. So the study explored how sleep deprivation affects emotional regulation and reactivity. Participants were shown emotionally negative images twice, once after a full night of sleep and once after a night of sleep deprivation. The study found that sleep deprivation significantly increased emotional reactivity, which means they're reacting to these images, to negative stimuli, suggesting that adequate sleep plays a critical role in maintaining emotional stability. Now, I want to talk about how I translate that, because when you think about what resilience essentially is your ability to bounce back. It's your body, your brain, your biology, whatever. Its ability to take stress, deal with that stress, and then go back to its regular state of being. So if you're happy or feeling okay, feeling normal, feeling emotionally well, and something bad happens to you and it hurts, that's going to affect you. Nobody can avoid that effect. However, your ability to go back to that normal state is your level of resilience. Sleep deprivation can affect that level of resilience. It can make you less resilient to stress, which makes you more likely to be emotionally unstable into the study, what the study suggests, it can also make you essentially less happy. So when you think about people that are constantly unhappy or that cannot handle stress or that are emotionally unstable, is it really their fault? Especially
they get the free will to choose to get more sleep, though. So yeah, they have a choice.
they only have enough free will as they believe they do. Hence the study about the elephants, a psychological study about how elephants are trained at very young ages. The elephant on the rope. We talked about this before, right? So the elephant is on a rope for a certain
it's
amount
on
of
a
time.
chain when it's a baby, and then they just use a rope, and it's when it's an adult, and because it
Right.
still feels the bondage. I get that.
And
But we're
it
not
doesn't-
elephants.
we're not elephants, but there is a relation when it comes to memory. We are creatures of habit. You ever meet someone and say, "Man, they've been doing the same thing for 30 years and they don't ever want to change." It's not that they don't, not even that they don't want to. It's almost as if they don't even know that they can change. People that grew up in certain places in the world, they don't even believe, somebody from Somalia or somebody from the Congo can't imagine what it's like to be stressed out about not having internet. The concept of stress, they can't fathom the idea that you're stressed out about not having internet access, because where they live, that's not even a consideration.
Yeah.
So it's not about whether or not even though there are two people, there are two different levels of stress, or two different lifestyles, environmental influences. Each person will respond to different environmental stimuli differently based off of what they believe is reality. And the person in the Congo's reality is that of much more suffering than that of somebody from the States, United States or Canada, who has high-speed internet access. However, the visceral feeling can be the same, because even though the person that's living in this first world country is experiencing a objectively less stressful experience, to them, viscerally, it's not. But the person in Congo will be more resilient as a consequence of dealing with more stressful situations.
You see a lot of people in very poor countries that live in basically nothing and sleep on cardboard, and they're happy. They're smiling. They're actually living and enjoying life. And these people have nothing. And living in a first world country, you look at that and you're like, oh my God, poor people. I could never do that. Yeah, because we're spoiled. This is what we're used to. But if that's all you knew, you certainly would do it, because that's all you know. And
so you concede. So you concede to my point then, right? You're conceding. This is a concession. Guys, ladies and gentlemen.
That's not free will, though. That's not free will. That we'll do an episode on this one day and we'll debate it, because that is not free will.
All right.
We're talking about sentience as well, the ability to identify as a created being and potential creator or lack of, whatever you believe, universe, Big Bang. Elephants aren't sitting there meditating, thinking about these profound topics. Okay.
No.
So we do have free will. And I think you just need a catalyst. It's not that you're pre-programmed that because whatever happened to you, you're never going to flip that switch. You can watch something, bump into somebody, have a conversation. It gets you, inspired about something. That's not, again, that's, maybe you could argue that that's not your free will. That's something within you already that just triggered because of that stimuli.
Well, if I was a dolphin, we'll talk. We're
Dolphins
gonna have
are pretty smart. We don't want to get too bad on the dolphins. They know where we are. Okay,
get ready for the great debate, ladies and gentlemen. It's coming up.
Yeah. That'll be coming up here. So we want to provide some information on what you can do and things like that in the second half. But I just want to clear up we've been talking about how you need more sleep. This is the bad stuff when you don't get enough sleep. Let's talk about the good stuff. What happens when you do get enough sleep? And how does that compare to the opposite?
These are the benefits of sleeping more. Studies show that if you sleep less than 6 hours for one night, your immune system will drop by almost 60%. People who sleep less get sick more because their immune system is not up for the challenge. Me, I haven't been sick in over 6 years. When everybody was out here catching C-19, I was walking around New York City like I am legend. It also improves your mood. The studies show that on average, if people get just 1 extra hours of sleep per night, they would be significantly happier. People talk about, I want to be happy. I want to be happy. Hey, just sleep an extra hour every day. One of the most important reasons to sleep more is you're going to be more productive. You're going to be able to think better, more creative. Your brain is going to be functioning a lot better so you can make more money. If you're all tired, sleepy, you can't compete with me. How you going to compete with me if you're all tired? If you're tired, you need to be retired. I'm never out here being sleepy because I sleep enough at night. So if you want to make more money, be healthier, and feel better, get more sleep. You're on mute, my friend. You are on mute.
There you go. You should be good.
Did I do that?
You
So
must.
first of all, he sounds like the Gary V of sleep study. That's I want that out there right now. He's walking around here like I am legend. That was funny.
You need to
So
sleep
let's
half
talk
out of
about
your
a case
life.
study. Let's talk about some case studies.
We're on a network, so we
He
can't
was
swear
got some
anymore. It
energy.
sucks, but
Yeah,
we
well,
can
no,
say
we-
F.
yeah,
That's
well,
not,
you know,
that's not the whole word.
not the whole. True. Somebody says forking. So let's talk about a case study that kind of goes into. There's one thing that I think is important. I really do believe that, and this is a fact. This is at least there are studies that suggest that sleep plays a huge role in your immune system, and in inflammation, and in cognitive functions, performance, and brain plasticity, which we talked a little bit about brain plasticity, cognitive plasticity, or neuroplasticity a couple weeks ago. So the one case study you want to talk about is called the effects of sleep deprivation on response to immunization. It was by Dr. Prather A, Hall M, Fury JM, and Ross DC, and again a host of other scientists. The study investigated how sleep duration affects the immune response to the hepatitis B vaccine. Participants with shorter sleep duration had less robust immune responses, indicated by lower antibody levels post-vaccination, suggesting that adequate sleep enhances the effectiveness of vaccinations by supporting the immune system. Now, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I'm also somebody who doesn't think that. I also think that if you don't need it, if you're a healthy person, take good care of yourself, you don't have any sicknesses, and you're isolating, then I understand people who don't want to get the vaccinations for whatever reason. But in this case, there is an immune response. There's an immuno response to having more sleep in conjunction with vaccinations. So he talked about it being during COVID, he was walking around like I am legend, which was, again, hilarious example. I love that, by the way. I love when people use movie references. He probably was getting a lot of sleep. His body was producing the growth hormones. He was getting that rejuvenating REM sleep. So his body was producing hormones for healing, and all kinds of benefits. Cognitive functions. There's another case study that talks about cognitive performance and brain plasticity called The Role of Sleep in Cognitive Processing, focusing on memory consolidation. That one talked about how, the emphasis on sleep's critical role in memory consolidation and brain plasticity suggests that specific sleep stages, and this is where we talked about REM versus non-REM, are involved in different aspects of memory processing, contributing to the strengthening of neural connections. Now, if you haven't seen the last episode we talked about neuroplasticity, and you guys really need to take a look at that. There's some interesting stuff that talks about neural connections. This process is essential for learning, problem solving, and creativity. Lack of sleep can not only make you more sick or lead to you getting sick more often, it can also affect your ability to think clearly, make good decisions, and have higher level cognitive activity. So you can be stupid and sick if you don't sleep right.
So I might be crazy, but your
sleep,
audio
yeah.
levels are way delayed from your video. I feel like I'm watching a bad Asian
Really?
dubbed movie. You're talking, but your body language does
No,
not match anything
seriously?
you're saying right now.
Oh,
So we're
no.
going to take our break.
Oh, no, that's terrible.
You'll log out, log back in, and we'll have you all set for the next half
Yeah.
here. So, but if you're listening to audio only, nothing happened, folks. Everything's cool. Marquise is, I don't know, he's in Singapore right now, and we got a 6-second delay on his audio. So we'll get her sorted. We'll see everybody back after our break. Refill time. Where's Tim? Get those shot glasses in the chat room, Tim. Time to drink, folks. See you in 5. And welcome back to the second half of Quantum Ladder Podcast. We are talking about the magic of sleep today. And we've been explaining all the negative benefits of not getting enough sleep, the positive benefits of getting enough sleep, and, all the good and bad associated with that. We're going to give you guys some tips and some things you can do in your own life as well. But I've got one real quick on sleep temperature. We mentioned that briefly in the first half. that even just being off by a couple of degrees can significantly affect the quality of sleep that you get, or even your ability to fall asleep. So let's check out our friend Andrew Huberman on temperature.
Your brain and body have to drop by 1 to 3 degrees in order to get into sleep and to stay in deep sleep throughout the night. If your room is too hot or if you're running too warm, you will wake up. In fact, that is why you wake up in the morning.
Well,
I can attest to that. I like it cold. I don't like it too hot, or I can't sleep, and I toss and turn if it's too hot. So definitely, I can attest myself that that's true.
so let me just give an anecdotal, a reference to that whole thing. If it's cold, I prefer it to be colder, because then I could actually I can wrap myself in multiple blankets, including over my head, to keep it dark. I actually sleep with the blankets over my head. Hopefully nobody tries to rob me, because I'm not going to notice it's going to happen. I'm just going to be out. But for me, I get my very best sleep when it's cold, and I use my body temperature as insulation, like in the blankets for insulation, to put myself to sleep. That is just for me the best. That's for me the best.
Yeah. And there are different causes of insomnia. We've all gone through it at some point. Nobody's ever had a perfect sleep record, right? So we can all relate. But stress, that's a big one. Irregular sleep schedules, as we mentioned, your lifestyle, drinking, smoking, drugs, mental health disorders, physical pain. If you don't feel well, you're tossing and turning, you're not going to sleep well. You're going to move every so often. It's not going to be restful. Some medications can do that as well. Neurological function, your age. You'll need more sleep as you age. It goes like a graph. Pregnancy, of course, as well, too, because, you got the baby bump and you're not sleeping like normal. So the graph is kind of like this. Starts off as an infant and toddler, they need the most sleep. And then it kind of tailors down. But then after, a certain age, middle age and onward, that goes back up again. And, you'll see older folks will have to go longer or shorter periods of time before needing a nap or sleeping. Your body will want more of that as you age as well. And maybe that's just because your energy levels are low. Maybe they're not in the greatest health. That could be part of it too, right? But there are, for an adult human, roughly 7 or more, 8 is the magic number. A teen, 8 to 10. I can definitely attribute when I was a teenager, I needed 9-10 hours, like especially in school. I couldn't focus if I was just getting 8. 6 to 12-year-olds, they recommend 9 to 12 hours a day. So naps can also supplement that. Preschool, 10 to 13, definitely need a nap. Toddlers and infants. When we first had our baby, and Marquise, you have 30 of them, so you can attribute to this, but they sleep, they wake up, they feed, they cry, they poop, they go back to sleep for an hour or two. Then they wake up again. Like the first week of bringing our baby home, that's how it was. It was like barely awake at all, just sleep all the time. And I think there's a lot of mental development that happens with that too. The body's putting all its resources in, brain patterns rather than physical. And it changes throughout your life. And if it's evident that as humans, we need X amount of sleep. As a baby, they're just going to sleep. You can't keep them up even if you want to. Yeah. So as an adult, we have to be sort of conscious of the fact that we're still that same machine. We've just aged and changed a little, but we're still very much dependent on those same things, just like food and water. Sleep is equally important. And, we watched that video on your mental state, and I can attest to this too. And I'm stressed out, not getting enough sleep. Everything makes me more irritable than it should, like my reactions, how visceral it feels. It's a lot more amplified than it needs to be. And it feels real to you because you're going through it. But when you're sleep deprived, and that's why, in areas where people have been manipulated, cults or interrogation, they use sleep deprivation as a weapon, as a tool, because they know it's going to set you off your game. You're not going to think right. You're not going to feel right. You're going to be weaker in a lot of ways, immune system wise, mental wise. You're not getting that work overnight that needs to be done with the repair. Your physical health will suffer. So this is a well-known thing that they can use sleep to manipulate people to do things they want to do or to make them suffer.
So I have a couple of case studies because this is, the whole idea of sleep and temperature was your body temperature is kind of related to that circadian rhythm, which again, these are things I did not know about. So we're kind of, we are, there's the funny thing is a lot of these topics, we come into this with some knowledge, but then it's like, holy, wow, there's so much more to these stuff, which is why I'm glad we're sharing this, because a lot of it people have heard before, but some of it I'm certain I don't know who would know stuff like this. Let's talk about the body temperature thing that I found. So I'm going to read this to you guys here. So our body operates on the circadian rhythm, and it affects our core body temperature, typically lowering it at night to facilitate sleep onset and raising it in the morning to help wake us up. So a decrease in core body temperature signals the body it's time to sleep, whereas an increase suggests it's time to wake up. I did not know that.
It's like nature, right? It's hotter in the day. It starts to cool down at night. Your senses would perceive it the same as it would the light. The lighting's reduced, the temperature's dropping. Birds go by that as well. You see them all during the day. As soon as it's dark, you don't see them or hear them. They're all nesting, and it's sleep time, right?
So intuitively, I should have known that because it makes perfect sense. The temperature drops at nighttime. Your body produces melatonin when it gets dark. So that therefore, your body pretty much understands it's time to sleep. Again, I didn't even put that together like scientifically, or at least I should say intuitively. I didn't put that together, but now I know. So there's a case study that was published in Sleep Medicine Reviews in 2007, and it was titled the psychological link between circadian rhythm, sleep, and thermal regulation. And it emphasizes the interconnection between sleep regulation and body temperature. It explains how the circadian system modulates sleep and wakefulness partly through changes in body temperature. And here's the really important part of this. Optimal sleep temperatures. There's research that suggests that the ideal temperature for sleep is around 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. So about 15 to 19 degrees, 19.4 degrees Celsius. And the temperatures outside this range can disrupt sleep by making it harder to fall asleep or causing wakiness during the night. So you need to essentially, if you're at home, you're thinking, oh, especially in the wintertime, you're thinking, it's cold outside, I'm going to make it a little bit warmer. Well, actually, you might be negatively affecting your sleep patterns.
Look at the summertime. If you live in a really hot place and you don't have air conditioning, try sleeping when it's 110 degrees outside. You can't. Even with no sheets, just laying on the bed, it is too hot. You sleep like crap, right? I know a lot of people where I live, it didn't used to get so hot throughout the year where a lot of people have an air conditioner. Many people don't, and they just kind of suffer the few days of the year that it's really hot. But lately it's been like 2-week long prolonged spells of, over 100-degree temperature, and people are getting sick. They're having breathing issues. So temperature not only affects your health, but in the sleep way. Now, imagine the snowball effect, right? You're not sleeping because it's too hot. You're becoming immunocompromised. Now, all these other things that come along with that, like the breathing, or if you have any conditions existing, it's just going to make it that much worse. If you already suffer from asthma or difficulty breathing, or if you need oxygen therapy to maintain your state of health, put them in a 100-degree room for any amount of time. And studies have shown that that's actually a compounding effect. The heat wave, it doesn't kill you the first day. It's when people go 4 to 10 days without a break. It's one day on the next. That's when you start having deaths from these, massive heat domes that we hear about in various parts of North America right now.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up because it's not necessarily always our fault, given the nature of society. I'm kidding.
This is true.
All seriousness. We mentioned this a lot, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I will keep beating this drum. We have designed a society where most of what we do socially, culturally, and globally is not conducive to the human condition itself. It's actually antithetical to overall well-being. We literally have a society that doesn't focus on how we make the human condition better. How do we improve the human experience? We're always focusing on growth when it comes to, or relation to like corporations or corporate wealth and money and capital and what's the GOP? We're not focusing necessarily on the human condition, and unless it's to manipulate the human condition to keep things the way that they are and to push for financial and economic growth. That's crazy to me. Because a lot of people push these ideologies that they're antithetical to overall well-being. Your quality of life generally sucks if you are on the lower end of the income spectrum, and even when you're on the higher end of the income spectrum, what do you got to do to get there? It's not. It just doesn't seem like we really design. We can redesign this. I think we need to redesign society. We need to make things better for us all. And I think that we're going to do that one good night's rest at a time, so that
One
these people.
podcast episode at a time, that's what we're here for. We've told you to watch out for in your food and in your water, and don't breathe certain airs. Get a purifier. We've told you all kinds of stuff, what to watch out for. Explained aliens to everybody. You know, we're covering everything. Let's get into the good. Okay, we talked about all the bad. We know lack of sleep is not good. Okay, what can we do? How do we fix this? Let's get into how do we get you to sleep, and then how do we get you having cool dreams, and how you can really use sleep as a therapy and almost medicine in your life. So let's start off with a little clip here on if you have trouble falling asleep.
When you're struggling with sleep in the middle of the night and you're wide awake,
you're laying in bed and you're thinking, oh my God, I've got 5 hours left before I've got to go to work.
It's a little bit like trying to remember someone's name. The harder you try, the further you push it away. The prototypical recommendation is that after about 30 minutes of time awake, you should get out of your bed and you should just go to a different room and do something like, read a book or listen to a podcast. Don't eat because it then trains your brain to wake up to do that. Don't start working or getting in front of a computer screen. The reason is because if you start to spend a lot of time awake in your bed, your brain is an incredibly associative device. And very quickly it will start to learn that this thing called your bed is this place where I'm always awake.
So the one thing that I appreciate is the idea of rituals, right? Like people don't and I'm not talking about like let's not get like cult here, but
like
habits you can call. So I call them rituals for a reason, because I think that the idea of respect, reverence, and that feeling of it being more than just a routine or a habit, having that respect for those things in a deeply almost spiritual way gives it I think an amplified effect, in my opinion. As a matter of fact, there's actually science to prove that, which one of these days we could talk about the idea of like how science and religion kind of connect, how they interconnect. There are some real benefits to believing that something else is helping you along the way. There are real benefits to that. But when it comes to the idea of a ritual or a routine, if you like, there are some benefits. Let me talk about them. There's a couple things first. So the couple things we talked about earlier are temperature, 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 15.6 to 14 degrees Celsius. This is going to help you with that sleep. Is getting to sleep. Light. Now, blue light exposure is bad. So looking at your cell phone, being at a computer screen, watching TV, all these kinds of these unnatural light sources, they're going to affect your body's ability to fall asleep. They're going to affect your brain's ability, the pineal glade's ability to produce melatonin, and they're going to affect that circadian, rhythm that your body has for ultimately getting ready for sleep. Getting into the routine, this is part of what I think is most important. It's not just routine, but ritual, where you do these things religiously, because doing something religiously with respect and reverence, it gives you that ambient effect of beyond your control almost. In the 12 steps, one of the 12 steps, of course, is believing in a higher power, that you can't do it yourself, that you need a higher power. Adding these things to a routine, but treating them like a ritual, like a spiritual ritual, can genuinely help you have some serious effect, like positive effects. This is, again, beyond what you believe is even possible. Creating that uncomfortable environment, feng shui, if you will, set things up in a way that makes you feel comfortable. Clean up your room, make it less cluttered. Jordan Peterson's 12 rules of light, which, by the way, I'm not saying like him or don't like him, but that's a pretty good rule. Cleaning up your room is important when it comes to having your environment set to where your brain doesn't have that feeling of clutter. It actually affects your cognitive, your sense of I don't know, I want to say order and organization. It helps with your cognitive function as well. Eating, that you talked about earlier, having less caffeine. I know that people have to have those stimulants, but having less caffeine, especially 4 hours before sleep, is essential to getting good night's sleep. And as a consequence, you're going to have reduced stress because you're going to be more resilient. And that resilience will help you deal with things during the day, help you become more pleasant to be around, and even help you become better at dealing with stressful situations. So maybe you'll be the kind of person that people come to fix things. Or maybe in a situation, in an argument, you'll be able to de-escalate the argument because you're able to handle that stress better than you ever would before. Again, this whole, like, in my opinion, this is in totality, these kind of steps will help you to get better sleep and then ultimately to have a better life. Just have a better
Absolutely.
overall
Yeah,
life.
you're more level-headed when you're not running on 2 hours of sleep, right? Those little aggravating
Yeah.
forces will
Yeah.
aggravate you a lot more, much faster.
Yeah.
You know, like you picture the guy in the morning freaking out because somebody screws up his coffee at the drive-through. Something's causing that. It's his life, it's his stress, it's probably all the above, lack of sleep, too much of other things possibly. You know, it's a whole balance that we live happily with. And when anything is out of balance, something has to give. You know, one cannot exist without the other. You can't have, you know, a fulfilling, happy, and rich life with good food and exercise and zero sleep. It doesn't work. You know, you
That's
need
it.
the full package. So let's
I
give you some
apologize.
tips
Yeah.
here.
I didn't
And
mention the physical
what we're
stress.
talking about is basically called sleep hygiene. So this is a little diagram here on sleep hygiene. So go to bed and get up the same time every day. If you can't fall asleep, walk up, get out of bed, read, do something. Make sure your bedroom's quiet and dark. Get rid of electronic devices. And number 5, use your bed only for sleep and sex. All right, good advice. Number 6, exercise, be physically active, keep a sleep diary. So if you want to track your progress, that's very interesting. Keep a sleep diary, limit exposures to lights, establish this is your your ritual, Marquise, a relaxing
Yeah.
bedtime routine. You do the certain things, don't eat a big meal, caffeine, no smoke. Now it says avoid consuming alcohol, nicotine, and THC before bedtime. I'm one of those people that if I have a beer, it makes me feel tired. So I can attest that I would sleep faster. And a lot of people use THC to help with sleep. That's one of the medicinal benefits. So I would argue that in some cases, THC could actually benefit that. There are people who, because of medication or
Well,
insomnia or stress or otherwise, they can't sleep and it helps. So
I agree. There was a oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've learned about. I've read a couple books about it, and I'm not really very well versed on cannabis. Not entirely. I have a pretty good idea about how it works and how the medicinal benefits and stuff like that. But there was this one article that I read where they talked about how when people take certain strains of cannabis, it actually, because cannabis helps you deal with stress as well. It helps you become more resilient. It allows your brain or your chemistry or your psychology to be able to allow negative things to happen without you responding to them in a negative way at all. As a matter of fact, they call it water off a duck's back, right? You can deal with situations if you take a healthy and moderate amount of THC versus cannabis versus an excessive amount. You can deal with stressful situations better. However, that includes everything, including sleep. You know, if you're feeling tired and you take certain strains of cannabis, it can actually make you stay awake even longer because you're no longer affected by that feeling of being tired. It will get rid of that. So I can understand how in some, depending on the strain, I know there's like sativa and there's indica. Indica has what they call couch lock. It makes you really tired, and so some people fall asleep when they do that. But the sativa does the exact opposite. Everybody's body is different. Cannabis affects everybody very, very differently, according to different studies. So it's all about consulting with your doctor, obviously taking things in moderation, whether it be alcohol, cannabis, or caffeine, and then timing everything as a part of that ritual we talked about earlier. I think anything in healthy moderation can be good, except for like cocaine or something like that. Maybe not.
yeah, the interesting thing about cannabis is we actually have cannabinoid receptors in our body.
Yeah.
So we're genetically evolved to recognize cannabinoids or the presence of THC and CBD. So, I mean, you don't have that type of thing evolve into your gene pool in a couple hundred years. This is thousands and thousands of years of use, so much to the point that the familiarity is within our DNA. We are literally programmed to have receptors for this. So it has been used for medicine for thousands of years, right? I mean, I don't know how it first happened. There was a forest fire and a bunch of monkeys got high. And like, I don't
They're
know.
like,
I don't know
even
what happened, but you know,
know.
there are obviously don't start anything without. We don't give medical advice, right? If you've never
No.
done it, talk to a doctor. Don't go crazy. Start slow. Don't
Yeah.
eat a bunch of gummies, and then you know you're gonna have a bad experience. Just like you shouldn't do LSD, you know, like just stuff like that, right? If you want to, you know, we could probably do an episode on cannabis one day, Marquise.
I think that'd be fun. That'd be fun. That and
Yeah, for
psychedelics,
sure.
one on cannabis, one on psychedelics, you know, stuff like that. That'd be really fun. I think people, I underestimated the level of interest that people have in psychedelics and cannabis. I completely underestimated that because there's a stigma. The
Yeah.
stigma is very negative. It doesn't talk about the science behind the medicinal purposes that people use cannabis for. I always thought, even my entire life, I thought that cannabis was a bad thing. That it was, if you do cannabis, you're either a bad person or you're a drug addict, and you're going to be a drug. Like, that was the perception that was created in my mind by media, by news, that said it's so bad, and how it was classified. I did not know there were benefits, especially when it comes to cancer patients. Now it can completely change your life. To people that have pain, to people that have issues with sleep and stress and insomnia and anxiety, in epilepsy and whatever. So there's a lot. I really underestimated the importance of it. If you guys ever have a chance to look into it, YouTube Charlotte, Charlotte's. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the organization. There's an organization that
it's Charlotte's Web, was it not?
Is
With
it
the
Charlotte's Web?
CBD?
Yeah, the CBD, where there was a girl, and this is such a vague memory. Please forgive me if anybody who knows this
She's
detail.
epileptic, and
Okay, yeah.
her parents went out of their way. This is at a time where cannabis was totally illegal and nobody could administer it. They went out of their way to get this particular strain grown in California. It's
Right.
not a very good, strain of marijuana for the psychological or psychoactive effects, but it was very high in CBD and their kid was having like 40 seizures a day. And when they would give the kid cannabis oil or CBD oil, she was having like one and sometimes not even one. And so that really got the ball rolling on, but nobody could do medicinal studies or clinical studies because it's scheduled a class 1 drug.
Yeah.
So no
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals can go test it because it's like saying, hey, we think heroin has some health benefits. They're not in the same category, but they
No.
are from
Yeah.
a criminal standpoint. Even states that have legalized cannabis, it's still federally illegal. So they still get raided and people still get arrested for it. And there's people serving almost like life sentences for tiny amounts of possession from 30 years ago. Like, it's ridiculous. That's a whole episode in itself.
We'll get there.
But it can help you sleep too. Look into that and consult with a professional. So now let's talk about how do we get into dreaming? What are some of the benefits? If you can get into sleep, how do you get a healthier sleep? What can you do with sleep? Can you improve your life through your sleep? And now we enter the world of things like lucid dreaming and manifestation, and where you let your consciousness kind of interact with the cosmos, and amazing things can happen, from healing to, getting rid of addiction, things like that, sort of meditations while you sleep, interpreting dreams, all of that. So check out this clip here on dreams and manifesting.
Do this tonight before you go to sleep and watch your life change. It's called Dream Magic. I do this every night. First, you make a list of a few things you want to manifest. It could be anything. You say it in present tense command form. You can say it to God, to your higher self, to your subconscious, or all three. It goes like this. Find me a new client. Show me where I'm meant to live in my dreams. Heal my physical body. Upgrade my consciousness so I wake up refreshed with clear intuition, ready to go. So you make a list of these, and the most important part is that you feel like it's already done. So as you're ordering like at a restaurant, you know the food's gonna come out. Doing this right before you go to bed, your brainwaves are in theta, your subconscious is highly programmable. Then you drift off to sleep, wake up, and watch the miracles start to happen. Let me know in the comments what happens. I'd love to hear from you.
We covered brainwaves in our last episode, theta being your deepest state of sleep, and REM and all the rest. And there's other ways you can use technology. You can use things like binaural beats or isochronic tones, Hertz music. Basically, it can be just a certain frequency, like a buzz or a consistent tone. It could be overlaid with relaxing music, water, but there's that underlying frequency that gets your brain from, beta to alpha, delta, theta, and then hyper focus levels of gamma and stuff like that too. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, check out our last episode called Brainwave Entrainment, and we talk a lot. About that. So what do you think, Marquise? Can you manifest from your dreams? Do you think that works, making a list?
I am 100%. And so I believe in it 100%. I think it is. There's no doubt in my mind. Whether it works on the level of like magic, I'm not going to go there. I don't have any beliefs about magic or whatever. I think there's a real effect that we have, that our thoughts have on our everyday life. And not only do I think that there are studies that prove that. But let me just mention a couple of things real quick before I get into any case studies. I just want to get into like the practical side of it for the moment before we get into the case studies of this.
Sure.
So if you think about the idea of lucid dreaming, which I think is awesome, he talked about getting into the state of theta, the creativity, the meditative state that your mind gets into right before sleep. Again, we mentioned this last time in the brainwave entrainment episode, where if you're falling asleep and you're like, oh man, I've got this great idea that I never thought of before. A lot of people have those moments of spontaneous creativity right before they're going to sleep, or where they remember something or come up with a solution or whatever. It's then. Now imagine if you could direct that. That is what that guy was talking about. You can direct your brain's focus on those spontaneous moments of spontaneity where you just come up with something, or you can literally program your brain to be able to feel and think and gear itself towards your goal. So when you tell yourself, for example, find me that client, or help me deal with this situation in my relationships, or help me deal with this situation at work, or help me get a better job. No, you're not going to manifest it like magic where you like freaking Harry Potter and you're using no, but you can get your brain primed to change yourself and adopt behaviors by focusing on and asking for your brain, your body, your mind, your consciousness to kind of align with the things that you want. And as a consequence, you'll just naturally seek them out. And it feels like it's magic. It feels like it's manifestation. It feels like it's happening without your control, but really you're guiding yourself to those things. Hence what I believe still is the importance of treating things like a ritual, believing in there being something else helping you get to that aim. Because even if whether you believe in God or not, irrelevant, at least in with respect to what we're talking about now, what's important is that feeling of something else, your brain doing that to yourself. You have a subconscious mind, whether you believe in God or not. There is that part of us that automatically, adjusts and learns and collects all information of all our experiences, and you can consult with it and ask it questions and get answers and ask it to do things and make changes. That's there. He's talking about directing it. That's the point. It's about directing the unconscious or subconscious mind by consciously in those moments of receptivity right before sleep, during theta, meditation, using visualization techniques and things like that, lucid dreaming. That's how you get to that point. So sorry.
And even when you wake up, the first things you put in your mind, like, what do you tell yourself in the mirror when you wake up? Today's going to be a horrible day. I got all this shit to do. Like, you could psych yourself out and make it a poor day. I have my waking alarm in the morning. The first thing it says is today is a good day. I want to brainwash myself first thing in the morning. The first words I read is today is a good day. Whether it makes a difference or not, I don't know, but I'd rather err on the side of let's try than let's not, right? I know if I said, hey, you're going to hate today, that's probably not the best way to start my morning attitude, especially if I'm not super jazzed about what I have to do, right? So giving yourself those reminders, like Mo Gaddad said, if you let your brain say something negative, you better come up with 9 positives, because probably 90% of your life is okay, but we focus on 10%, and the 10% feels more real than the 90. So if you're going to let your brain assign more than 10% negativity, you better come up with 90% positivity. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff to do today, but hey, I woke up. I didn't die in my sleep. My family's healthy. I like where I live. I have some friends and people that care about me. I got a new car. I get to drive that. I'm hanging out with my friend Marquise later on. We do something we love to do and chat with our friends in the chat room. People we've never met that are good friends of ours. Let your brain get into the habit of, don't give it the out of, I get to spew some negative crap and walk away. Don't let your brain be a troll. That's what a troll does. They say something stupid and then they cower out and they don't even respond to any rebuttals, right? Try to implement that in your mind. And in terms of lucid dreaming, a lot of people don't know much about it. It's essentially, so, like if you're sleeping in on a day, you don't have to work and you're kind of like quasi awake, but still dreaming, but you kind of have control. Like you could be like, let's go down this hallway, or like, let's imagine it's something else. And you're literally in charge of that dream. That is a lucid dream. Now, sometimes it just happens on its own. Sometimes you can get yourself into that state. And there are ways that people actually can test for if you're lucid dreaming or not. So essentially, how are they studied? So spontaneous lucid dreams are very rare, but to study these phenomena, researchers typically induce lucid dreams using different methods. And here are some of the methods. So one is called reality testing. So this requires participants to perform tests throughout the day that differentiate sleep and waking.
That's crazy.
Participate may ask themselves whether or not they are dreaming during the day. Self-awareness is not possible during non-lucid dreams. So being able to answer this question proves that, in fact, they are awake. And reality testing is based on the notion that repeated tests will eventually seep into their dreams. So if you do that same thing throughout the day, ask yourself, am I awake? Am I awake? Or am I sleeping? Am I sleeping? You can answer that clearly when you're awake. No, I'm not sleeping. But if you can get that question programmed into your brain to happen during a dream, you can question the fact, am I actually dreaming or not? You're sort of bringing the conscious into that subconscious. Another way is what they call mild or WBTB methods. So it's mnemonic induction of lucid dream technique. Are you familiar with this, Marquise? Have you heard of this before?
These are literally almost all. There's a couple things that aren't, but this is like all my notes. This is crazy.
Beautiful. So for mnemonic induction of lucid dreaming, you wake up after sleeping 5 hours and you tell yourself to remember your dreaming once you've fallen asleep. And then the mild method has proven highly effective in some studies. The wake back to bed technique also requires waking up and then going back to bed. And so like you'll stay awake for 30 to 120 minutes. So you're trying to wake yourself up in a certain state before you can get back to that beta or totally awake. You kind of linger in delta and theta, and repeatedly doing that will kind of let your brain lapse one way or the other and let you get into that lucid state. Power of suggestion, of course. You watch a scary movie and then you have terrifying nightmares. That's kind of what that's all about. So to prove whether it's a lucid dream or not, they're trying to implant certain questions or things to think about, just like a scary movie would implant fearful images that would also make it into your dreams. So they're trying to sneak in questions that you ask yourself while sleeping to be able to tell if you are in fact in control of your dream. Another one is pick up a lucid dream inducing device. So there are portable devices. They often come in the form of a sleep mask, a headband. They produce noises or flashlights, vibrations, other cues such as auditory or visual. And they're usually a couple $100. Some are quite a bit more. Experiment with gaming. So there's a link between video games and frequency and control of lucid, especially with interactive games or role player games, kind of like the old fashioned Legend of Zelda, but in today's world, you're the character and you can do whatever you want. So if you let your mind kind of go into subconscious when you're playing games, you're just focused on the game, not the other. It's almost a quasi meditative state when you're really into that. That can also latch into your dreams. You'll remember a sequence of gameplay, but your brain will turn that into a dream. And now you're the character in that dream, effectively in control of that character. And that is a lucid dream, right?
So this is awesome. I love these moments where it's like there's like synchronicity, right? You and by the way, I don't know if everybody knows this. We actually research separately, and then we just come together and talk about what we learned together. We've talked about this before, but in case you don't know, so when you see something and you like your research aligns with mine, it's crazy because I try to find the most out there stuff. I got some other things too, by the way. And again, I know that I'm kind of like beating this drum, which is the one about the spiritual aspect of it. But let's just go there with me for a moment, okay? Suspend your judgment for a moment and think about the idea that there are some what people call spiritual changes you can make to your life. What people, if you're atheist or don't believe in any kind of spiritual or esoteric things, there's the idea of the subconscious mind. You have repressed emotional traumas. Some people do. When they do, they can resolve those repressed emotional traumas through lucid dreaming by facing some. For example, you could train yourself to lucid dream through some of the techniques that you mentioned earlier, through the wake back to bed, the WBTB, mnemonic induction, reality checks throughout the day, and meditation and mindfulness, of course, keeping a dream journal, which is probably the most important thing you could do to help you lucid dream. And then, of course, before you go to sleep, mantras, telling yourself or hypnotizing yourself by saying mantras, telling yourself what you want, and then allowing yourself to drift off. Overstimulation, hence the video games, overstimulating yourself can literally induce a lucid dream. So, for example, if you're reading a really good book and you're imagining the scenarios, or you're listening to an audiobook, or you're, whatever, these kinds of things can help induce lucid dreamings as well. But doing these, whatever it is to help you get to that point, you can resolve emotional problems solve problems that are far deeper than you even thought were ever possible in your dreams. There was a person that had some traumas. I mentioned this in a vague way, but they were assaulted in a way by someone when they were younger. It affected their relationships their entire life. And this person went to a dream study clinic, and they practiced lucid dreaming. And the study where they were trying to help them. This is a study that was trying to help people with emotional traumas and past traumas and things like that, PTSD, stuff like that. They were able to face the person that had assaulted them in a particular way in their dream with no fear. And over the course of several months of doing this repetitively, facing this person, having a conversation with this person, forgiving this person, something they could not do consciously because it evoked some serious, some responses that's why they were clinically, diagnosed with this PTSD and some other issues. They couldn't face these problems consciously without having episodes. They could face it in their dreams, and they were able to resolve those emotional traumas through their lucid dreaming. That's the kind of some people call that a spiritual resolution. Mm-hmm. And whatever you want to believe, however you want to see it is irrelevant. You got to see it from a place of respect and reverence and treat it like that. And that it's beyond you. It's beyond your conscious ability to do. You have to ask for, and if you will, plead and beg for these kinds of things to happen, especially if it's traumas or emotional pains. And it's possible to do them. So that's my kind of 2 cents into that in my perspective.
Yeah. And think about people that undergo hypnosis to deal with PTSD or past traumas, right? Effectively, you're having somebody guide you. You're still awake enough because you're listening to the feedback, but you're in this dreamlike state. Lucid dreaming, effectively, you become the patient and the shrink. You know what you need to do to feel better, and you make the patient do that through their thoughts, and you address those negative people or events, or you relive them with a different outcome where you're no longer the victim, and you win in the end. You become triumphant. Right. You can set the stage and then choose the ending of that play in such a way that it provides a therapeutic benefit, a psychological benefit. And doing this frequently basically could completely restructure your sleep-wake cycle. So in turn, it'll affect your emotional regulation, memory consolidation, and other aspects of day-to-day life. And you don't dream unless you're in that REM state. So getting into that deep state, into theta, and allowing your body to do its most healing and sort of repairing mode, which is REM, that's where the dreaming comes from. And the better you can get at trying to induce a lucid dream or doing meditation, you get the brain used to going from this level down to this level, down to here. You can do this through breathing techniques. You can do it through stress management, diet, exercise. All these things contribute to a healthier body-brain relationship where you feel good, you feel better as a result of the ritual that you do, and that gives you that, enforcement and encouragement to keep doing it. Your body tends to like it. Before we got our water machines and really got into the healing benefits of water and hydrogen, I wasn't drinking enough water every day. My wife would text me every day, make sure you drink water. Now I drink a gallon and a half of water every day. And if it's been 3 hours and I haven't had it, I can tell. When you feel thirsty, it's too late. You're way past dehydrated. Yep. So, and you said, but even before the show, that the days you don't drink 4 or 5 liters of water, you don't feel the same.
I don't feel right. I do not feel
noticeable.
Right. Yeah. And if you guys go back and watch some of the episodes, I want to say maybe like right before we did this, we got these machines. Guys, I was tired every single episode. But here's the thing. I do more now. I work more now than I did then. And I feel fantastic. Way more often than I did then. And the only change that I've made is that I drink more water. I have this hydrogenated water. It's a big deal. It really does work. It really does affect.
I mean, we're talking about these machines here. And again, our friends at H2 Water Expert sell these machines. They have a dual massive sort of cylinder filters in them. Some of these from Japan, they're called Kangen. They don't actually filter. They will just add hydrogen, but depending on your source water, some of them don't even add hydrogen and don't filter. So you need clean filtered water. Don't buy any machine that doesn't filter. But this not only filters the water, it infuses it or dissolves hydrogen. And if you follow us on Facebook, you see we mention a lot about the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. This is the ultimate tool, natural way to get rid of, free radicals in your body, antioxidants, inflammation, everything from brain function, heart function, gut health, removing those oxidative stresses that cause disease in the long run. So, from all the research we've done, not only can it help people in a state of disease and improve recovery and everything like cancer, all kinds of stuff, but in healthy people, it acts as a preventative measure, preventing that, neurooxidative stress, early onset dementia. It cleans you out. And there's two ways you can basically get these benefits. One is through drinking hydrogen-rich water. The other is through inhaling it. I'm actually testing a new machine myself.
Hold on, not inhaling water, just to be clear.
Correct. Yeah. And so what this is done, people say, well, what do you mean hydrogen water? There's hydrogen in water. Yeah, but it's bonded with oxygen. We're talking about molecular hydrogen, giving the water an additional dissolved amount of hydrogen that is now reactive. It's looking to bond with any kind of free radicals. So hydrogen is the smallest molecule in the universe. And when it gets into your body, things like hydroxyl and superoxide, it bonds with those things and neutralizes them. So effectively, it's like vitamin C, but there's no limit on what you can have. Whatever you don't absorb, your body just exhales. It's not cytotoxic. And antioxidants are. And in fact, even like oxygen therapy, hyperbaric therapy, you've heard of athletes going in there with injuries, pressurized oxygen, they heal a lot faster. They have to take medicine and antioxidants after that because they just increased a lot of oxidative stress in their body, whereas hydrogen is the exact opposite. It removes that. So you talked about ritual. This is my new ritual as I'm testing. Look at me. I look like a cyborg. This is what I got going on here. This machine is a 4-in-1 device. You can inhale pure hydrogen, pure oxygen. You can inhale a combination of both, known as oxyhydrogen or Brown's gas. 2 people can use it. You can like make foot baths out of it. You can make toning water. You can make alkaline rich water that would purify vegetables and things like that. But effectively, the main applications are hydrogenating water. There's an eye application, an ear application, and then a multiple user setup. So here I have the nasal cannula pumping pure hydrogen. Because it's a 2 outlet, in the second splitter for the hydrogen, I have these goggles with little hoses in them. So my eyes get very puffy when I'm tired. They'll get red, they get dry. That's inflammation. So this is for people that have eye conditions or inflammation. And like me, the inflammation causes dryness. Then through the art of blinking and our active blinking, they get red and scratchy. So if you remove the inflammation, you don't get the red eyes. So I'm taking hydrogen therapy in my eyes, in my nose, and I'm listening to binaural beats or isochronic tones at the same time. So this is my hour before bed for the last week. This is what I've been doing, like a ritual, same time every night. I'll prepare a liter of hydrogen water. I'll drink that. Then I'll start listening to, and different frequencies will get you in different states. So first, I'll usually start off with kind of like a euphoric or an introspective one, and then I'll move into more like a relaxing frequency, and then I'll put it on the frequency of deep sleep, set timers on everything, and then just pass out. So, but to your point about being able to do more and have more, more energy and all the rest, I'm already noticing that. And we're in talks with this company, Tech4 Health, to potentially sponsor our show as well, because this machine will not only make hydrogen water, it's also hydrogen inhalation, which affects your heart, your brain, your lungs, gets into the bloodstream instantly. It goes past that, what they call the blood-brain barrier, effectively removing toxins and buildup that we've had for years and years and years. So I'm putting it through a battery test, just like we did with our water machines before we agreed to say, okay, we believe in it. Like we've beat the hell out of it. We'll pass on a good review. So that's what I'm doing right now with the Tech Pro 900 from Tech4 Health. So I'll report back in a couple of weeks how things are going, and we'll let everybody know how it is and if they should consider it or not. So let's talk a little bit about sleep paralysis. That's one of those abnormal conditions that we described earlier in the show. It can also come as a result of lucid dreaming, and there is a connection. So here's a video clip on that.
One of the bad things that started happening is the more lucid dreams I had, the more likely it was that I experienced sleep paralysis. And sleep paralysis is fucking gnarly, because sleep paralysis is when it's like the opposite of lucid dreaming. So like lucid dreaming, you go to sleep, you realize you're dreaming.
Yeah.
But sleep paralysis is when you wake up, but your body doesn't physically wake up. So you can't move, right?
Damn, dude.
But it doesn't stop there, because that in itself isn't really that scary, because you can't move. I mean, it could be scary, right? That you normally have your control of your body, and all of a sudden your brain just didn't wake up your body, so you can't move it. But the thing that comes along with sleep paralysis that is kind of gnarly is there's a lot of auditory and sometimes visual hallucinations associated with it. So sometimes you're not fully paralyzed and you can like open your eye, and then like so sometimes like parts of your body you can move a little bit or like twitch.
Yeah.
But generally you can't move. The last time I got sleep paralysis, fucking like opened my eye a little bit and there's like dark figures surrounding me, like, and it's weird because that's the real world, right?
Damn.
But it's just hallucinations, like dream hallucinations in your real world, right?
You may not have been hallucinating, buddy. Those figures may not have been a dream.
No, dude. Listen.
He's in denial.
There is a very big difference between sleep paralysis, hallucinations, and then seeing shadow figures and other entities in your room. I'm going to establish that right now. There is a definite difference. The studies behind those are, I didn't plan on having, because I didn't know that he was going to say that. I didn't know that he was going to say that, but I will tell you, hopefully one day we can come back to that whole idea of sleep paralysis, or in some respect with studies. So I remember reading a couple studies about sleep paralysis because I had experiences with sleep paralysis. Let me talk about my personal experience, and I'll talk about the science that I know. I only have two things to add scientifically. The first thing is that when I was younger, I was sleeping in my bedroom. I had a cat that I didn't like because this little freaker would literally lay on my clothes and leave all her fur, all of my stuff. And let me tell you, I used to be like, get up, stay up. She would do it on purpose. She knew I didn't like it. She knew I had allergies. She just wanted to attack me, okay, in some way. Well, one night, I put her in the basement, and I fell asleep. So she wouldn't sleep. So I wake up, and I wouldn't have her sitting on the basement safe. Now, just to be clear, everybody, the basement was safe. There's food down there and everything like that. That was not the problem. The problem was that she couldn't climb on my clothes, and her litter box was downstairs in the basement. So I figured, okay, she'll be fine. However, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I felt like something was pushing down on me, like holding me down. And I thought, oh my gosh, my cat sent an evil spirit to haunt me today because I kept her in the freaking basement. Now her food's down there, her litter box is down there. So I figured, what are you mad about, cat? That was clear and obvious sleep paralysis. There were no figures. I just couldn't move my body. I just woke up in the middle. I was already afraid of I felt bad about what I did. I felt terrible. Because again, even though she had her stuff down there, I just didn't feel right doing that. And so as a consequence, I associated the sleep paralysis with, my cat's pissed at me and sent an evil spirit at me. Now, let me tell you about another experience I had where I was practicing astral projection. I was practicing it. I was trying to teach myself how to do it. I did the whole routines and I studied how to do it and all that stuff, did the techniques, and I succeeded one night. And after a very strange experience that I won't go into in detail, I woke up, I sat up, and I saw a shadow figure at the end of my bed, at the foot of my bed. Didn't say anything to me, didn't speak. It was just a hooded shadow. That was not a hallucination. That was, again, if I saw it right now, would I be hallucinating?
Yeah.
If it, I know the difference.
When you're awake, you don't accidentally be like, oh, I thought I was awake, but actually I was dreaming.
No, I knew I was awake. Yeah. So I think he's in denial, or he just doesn't want to talk because it would sound crazy. I'm not afraid to sound crazy. I've already talked about crazier stuff than that. Now let's talk about the science. So there's a biological basis for the sleep paralysis. They actually don't know. So scientists and people who do sleep studies, scientists who do sleep studies, they don't actually know why we experience sleep paralysis. There are plenty of theories. There are case studies that suggest one thing or the other, but they don't know. So I'm going to read this real quick. So sleep paralysis is thought to key term, result from a disruption or a disrupted transmission between REM, rapid eye movement, sleep, and wakefulness, So during REM sleep, the brain is active and dreams occur, but the body's muscles are intentionally paralyzed by the brain to prevent acting out in dreams. So people who sleepwalk, they have an issue with that process that your body naturally does when it keeps you paralyzed purposefully, by the way, to protect you from getting up and fighting your partner because someone broke into your house in your dream. You're beating up your partner. There's a there's a natural response to your sleeps, to your dreams that your body does by putting you through sleep paralysis. But when it's interrupted, your brain still has you in that sleep paralysis. There's what's called this is called like a muscle atonia, and I think that's how you say it. Persists as you wake up. It leaves you temporarily paralyzed while you're still awake. You can hallucinate, by the way. So hallucinations can occur while you're experiencing sleep paralysis because you've just interrupted your dream sleep, your REM. So that's possible. But if you're self-aware enough to know the difference between shadow figures, which is common, by the way, among paranormal activity, and hallucinations, like, I don't know, I remember I used to see like maybe like bugs crawling on the walls, but only for just for like a second, like, waking up in the middle of the night, you'd be like, oh my gosh, there's a bug crawling on the wall. I knew that I just woke up from a dream, and then in my dream there was something weird that was happening, and it was just part of my dream. There was nothing really there, and I knew that. Like my brain understood that was a hallucination that carried over from that dream that was interrupted. You got to be self-aware enough to know the difference. But that's kind of that's pretty much all I have to add when it comes to sleep paralysis.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually had sleep paralysis, but I have had dreams where I felt paralyzed, not able to wake myself up. Like I wanted the dream to end. I was conscious of the fact that I was coming out of that deeper state and I was coming towards wakening conscious, but stuck, being chased by the bear.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
I'm like, hey, just wake up now, but
Yeah.
not able to wake up now. And that feeling of not being able to move and like feeling of paralysis in the dream, but not necessarily while awake, but lucid enough to know that I wanted to wake up right now, but physically can't. So it was kind of like stuck between two different levels, maybe between, theta and beta, and, skipping the delta in the middle. I don't know, but that's about the closest I think I've ever come to lucid dreaming. So that's about all I got on this topic, Marquise. I got a few show notes. I just want to make sure that we want to sort of recap. So sleep hygiene, consistent schedule, getting good habits, avoid substances before bed. If you're, lacking sleep, technology, put the phone down, even watching TV before bed. You're better to read because there's a lot more happening in a cerebral sense than just watching television. Nutrition is important, and foods high in magnesium, like greens or nuts or stuff like that. And certain dairy can actually promote it. Warm milk is a very old remedy for sleep. There's actually something scientific to that. Exercise can help you as well, especially if your lack of sleep is attributed to stress. The exercise can relieve the stress and thereby make it easier to sleep. Plus, you're physically more tired. But don't exercise too late because, like, I used to play hockey at 11 o'clock at night. I'd get home at midnight. I'm not going to bed anytime soon. My adrenaline's still raging from just, playing something that, high, fast pace and athletic. There's a big drain on my body. It was not good for sleep, whereas maybe cardio would be, or lifting weights, something with a little less of an adrenaline rush, but more physical strain. And understanding that your sleep does suffer from stress. So stress management is very important. Deep breathing, get into meditative states, do, crazy things like I did with, the mask and the ears and whatever that looks like for you. Find something that you feel helps. And then your brain will have, like, again, placebo is very powerful. If we think this actually works, it will. So if you find something that actually works, it's even that much more easy to train your brain, because you can't really fool yourself. If it's BS or not. So whatever you experiment with, whatever you find helps you, keep going with that. Keep reinforcing that pattern. Your neural, system will actually rewire to include that, right? And be conscious of circadian rhythms, waking times, sleeping times, the amount of light you have, and obviously things like diabetes, hypertension, Alzheimer's. A lot of them have irregular sleep as part of the problem. It's not the full answer or full reason, but it's definitely included. Environmental factors, noise, temperature, light, hardness of surface, your sheets. Go get good comfy sheets, right? If flannel sheets make you hot, don't use them, right? Go get maybe a bamboo or a natural fiber that doesn't feel that way. Make it a happy spot. Declutter it. Maybe, incense or, oils, diffuser. A noise machine is very helpful. It kind of plays like a white static. We have one in our toddler's room, and she's had it since a baby. It really helps her go to sleep quickly and stay asleep throughout the night. And, be conscious of the fact that bad sleep affects your relationships and how you feel, how your day is going to go, your level of productivity. Are you just surviving, getting through the day? Or are you thriving? So get in a good habit, get in patterns, and, they'll suit you well in the long run. So final thought to you, my friend Marquise. You are muted. You love that mute button, eh?
So I don't want to make any
thing.
noise. I don't want to make any noises while I'm just like, So there's a couple things I wanted to share with you guys. Just a couple books and a movie, documentaries. There are 2 documentaries I want to share with you guys called The Science of Sleep. It's National Geographic, and Sleepless in America, also National Geographic. You can go to the website or download the app, or if you have it on your TV, you can watch those 2. But I think the app is better. YouTube, I think YouTube has the Sleepless America documentary. They're very good. They talk about some really interesting stuff. And then there are 4 books. Yes, I know there are books. They're not fun to read all the time, but if you enjoy reading, you'll enjoy this. Why We Sleep: Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams by Matthew Walker. The Sleep Solution: Why Your Sleep is Broken and How to Fix It by Chris Winter. Sleep Smarter: 21 Essential Strategies to Sleep Your Way to a Better Body, Better Health, and Bigger Success by Sean Stevenson. And the last one is The Nocturnal Brain. This is probably the most interesting one. The Nocturnal Brain: Nightmares, Neuroscience, and the Secret World of Sleep by Guy Letzner. I can't pronounce that name properly, but this is important. If you sleep better, you'll feel better. You'll be happier. You'll be more pleasant to be around, and you'll be more resilient to stress in your everyday life. And of course, you'll be less likely to die young. So
these are all good things for sure. And leave us your comments down below if you've experienced this. What are some of the things you've done that help? Maybe they can be of service to other people suffering with the same. We do this show to bring you good information. It's not for ads or merchandise sales or money. This is a totally free show aimed at just helping people and giving people some info that they didn't have before, and also giving them some cool stuff to think about and to play with. And it doesn't hurt, doesn't cost you anything to try it, but there's nothing but good that can come out of it. So give it a shot. Even if you are a pretty good sleeper, there are some ways we can improve and spend more time in that rapid eye movement sleep. You wake up, you feel better. You feel the way you did when you were 10 years old and slept until noon. You're just like, oh man, I feel great. Yeah. We don't have many of those days. At least I don't. And I know a lot of people don't. So how do we get to that? And I'll report back on my unique bedtime regimen if it's making a difference. And again, leave us your comments, leave us your thoughts. Thank you everybody for watching. We really appreciate it. Chat room is always awesome, polite, and everyone shares their personal experiences. And we like that. We want to be that sort of forum for people to come together, no judgment, and let's all get better as a result. So with that, we'll bring today's show to a close. On behalf of my co-host, Marquise Williams, and myself, Louis Borges, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. And until then, take care of each other, and bye for now.